welcome to Michelle Reads Books. Today we are looking at Mansfield Park by Jane Austen. So I've been going through all of the Jane Austen books in the order that they were published. These will not come out in the order that they're published, but I have really been enjoying them. Mansfield Park is an interesting one. It's kind of different than all of the other books that she had written. It's a little bit darker, yeah. Anyways, so I'm going to start out with the summary and then go on to my opinion. All right, Mansfield Park. 3 sisters all marry for different reasons and have vastly different lives. The oldest marries Sir Thomas Bertram and they have a very comfortable life living in Mansfield Park. They have 4 children: Tom, Edmund, Maria, and Julia. Mrs. Bertram is very lazy and indolent and loves being served. The second sister remains single for a long time, living with her older sister. Eventually, she marries the local clergyman, Mr. Norris. She is a very busy person and loves to work and save money. They have no children themselves, but Mrs. Norris solidly prefers her oldest niece, Maria. The younger sister married young for love. She marries a sailor with a modest income named Mr. Price. They have 9 children and live in Portsmouth. They struggle financially and their household is very chaotic. Eventually, Sir Thomas Bertram decides that they should do something for the Prices. They decide to take in their second child and oldest daughter, Fanny. She was 10 years old at that time. Fanny struggles with the transition and very much misses her older brother, William. Edmund is her only cousin that really takes an interest in her and tries to do small, kind things to help her. A few years later, Mr. Norris dies, and Aunt Nora spends most of her time at Mansfield Park. Sir Thomas goes to Antigua in order to solve some problems with the sugar plantation, taking his oldest son with him. Mrs. Norris spends her time looking for a husband for her favorite niece, Maria. Time passes, and when Fanny is 19, Maria gets engaged to Mr. Rushworth, who owns a very pretty estate and is even wealthier than her father. Sir Thomas approves the engagement by post under the condition that the wedding itself doesn't take place until he returns. A new family moves into the parsonage, Dr. and Mrs. Grant. Mrs. Grant's brother and sister come for an extended visit. They are Mary and Henry Crawford. Mary shows early interest in Edmund, and Henry initially says he likes Julia best because he was told to like her best. It is quickly obvious, however, that Henry prefers Maria. Unfortunately, Fanny is forgotten as Mary Crawford is offered the use of her horse. One day, they all visit Mr. Rushworth's estate in order to see the house and gardens. After a tour of the house, they wander the gardens in smaller groups. Fanny is initially with Mary Crawford and Edmund, but she tires quickly and is left to sit on a bench. While resting, Maria, Mr. Rushworth, and Henry Crawford all come along. They want to go through a gate, which is locked, so Mr. Rushworth returns to the house to fetch the key. Maria says she can squeeze through the side of the gate and encourages Henry to come too. They do. When Mr. Rushworth returns, he's hurt that Maria didn't wait for him. Eventually, Fanny is hurt that Edmund seems to have forgotten her, and she goes after him. She finds them in the avenue she wanted to see, having an argument. Mary is incredulous that Edmund intends to become a clergyman. Edmund is sure that that is what he wants to do with his life. Tom returns to Mansfield Park with a friend, Mr. Yates, in tow. Mr. Yates explained that he had just come from a party where they were all practicing a play called Lover's Vows. Mr. Yates really wants to stage the play. Edmund believes that their father would not approve, as does Fanny. No one else voices any reservations, and everyone begins to practice the play, as well as to build a stage in the billiard room. They are still missing one of the larger roles and need another male actor. Instead of inviting an outsider, Edmund decides to play the character despite his reservations. That pairs Edmund and Mary as lovers in the play, as well as Henry and Maria as mother and son. A day or two before the final performance, Sir Thomas returns unexpectedly. He is quite upset that no one voiced any objections. He is most surprised that Mrs. Norris helped, and with no objections. He praised Fanny for refusing to participate. Maria at this point expects Henry to ask her to marry him. But he gives her less attention than before, making it clear that a proposal is not going to happen. Maria decides to move ahead with Mr. Rushworth before he realizes how little she thinks of him, and they marry quickly. Maria invites Julia to stay with her indefinitely. Shortly thereafter, Fanny's brother William comes for a visit before he sails again, and he is now a sailor like his father before him. There is some talk about trying to get William a commission, but it is concluded that that would be difficult. Upon seeing Fanny's enthusiastic love of her brother, Henry Crawford decides that she would make a good wife with that kind of love and loyalty. He speaks to Sir Thomas, and a coming-out ball is planned for Fanny. Henry insists upon the first two dances, and Edmund and Mary dance the first two dances as well. However, Mary says it will be the last time they dance together because she would never dance with a clergyman. Edmund changes his mind about proposing to Mary, and leaves the next day, as do Henry and William. Henry returns a few days later and tells Mary that he wants to marry Fanny. He uses his connections to get William a commission. He goes to tell Fanny about it, who is very grateful and very happy. Henry then proposes to her, but Fanny waves it off as insincere. Sir Thomas speaks to her about it, and there is some discussion about it. Fanny eventually expresses that he doesn't treat women very well, mentally citing his treatment of Maria, but doesn't explain in detail to Sir Thomas. Mrs. Norris is horrified at Fanny's rejection of Henry's offer of marriage and speaks very cruelly to her. Eventually, it is suggested that Fanny go to her family in Portsmouth for a visit. Not having seen them for the better part of a decade, Fanny enthusiastically agrees. Sir Thomas admits in confidence that he hopes the experience with her underprivileged family will show her to be more grateful for the advantages of Mansfield Park, and perhaps more open to accepting Henry Crawford's offer of marriage. Fanny is slightly horrified by the chaos of her family's home. She actively seeks peace for herself whenever possible, but also shows herself willing to bring more order into the home. Fanny also gets closer to her next youngest sister, Susie. Henry visits her at one point, and Fanny is happier to see him than she was before, but still isn't prepared to marry him. Then, one day, her father reads her an article in a newspaper about Mrs. Rushworth. The article says that she had left her home and run away with Henry Crawford. Fanny is horrified and immediately writes to Mansfield Park. Evidently, Edmund and Sir Thomas had gone to London to try and find Maria to bring her home, but they are unable to find her. Their search is complicated by the fact that Tom is quite ill. Edmund returns to Mansfield early to help watch over Tom. Fanny is sad she isn't there to help, but there's no way to return to Mansfield until the month after. She also learns that Julia eloped with Mr. Yates around the same time. Eventually, she makes it back to Mansfield Park and helps with Tom's continued care. Sir Thomas says that he now realizes that Fanny's rejection of Henry Crawford was the right decision. He offers to treat her like his own daughter because of her upright and moral character. He also offers to invite her sister Susie for an extended visit. After speaking to Mary Crawford, Edmund discovers that Mary doesn't actually disapprove of her brother's actions. She was only sad that it was discovered. He fully breaks off his relationship with her, and he tells Fanny all about it. As for Maria and Henry, Henry Crawford never offers to marry Maria. Maria stays with him despite this for several months before they separate. Knowing she will never be able to re-enter society, Mrs. Norris goes to Maria to be of some use to her. This is the last straw for Sir Thomas, and he doesn't want any more contact with either of them. Sir Thomas does, however, accept Julia's marriage, and Mr. Yates turns out to be a more decent person than he appeared at first. And when the time was appropriate, and not a moment sooner, Edmund expresses his love for Fanny Price. They marry, and the two move to the Mansfield Park Parsonage. Yeah, okay, so what is my opinion on it? I'm going to be honest, and as being a general fan of Jane Austen, I really love her spunk and the depth of her characters. What I don't like is Fanny Price. She is probably my least favorite character. Um, and I think the reason is because she's such a weak-willed person. For example, when Mary starts using her horse and she wants it back, and she doesn't speak up. She doesn't say, "Hey, I'd really love to be able to use my own horse." She just lets it happen. And they ask every day as well. They're like, "Oh, do you need it today? Do you need it today?" If she had just said, "Yes, I do," that would have been the end of it. But instead, she just lets it happen. She's just like, "No, that's fine. That's fine." She's such a little doormat, and it drives me crazy. You know, people are like, "Oh, you won't be going to this." Then she's like, "Oh, okay." Like she never stands up for herself. She also has some sort of physical issue. And you can tell because they're constantly talking about how tired she is. Like if she walks somewhere and then comes back, then she's so tired she has to lay down. And I looked up like some of the ideas of what she could have had. And probably the most likely one was the possibility of her having some sort of like iron deficiency. Like that's probably the most like likely. So but yeah, like chronic fatigue, possibly maybe a heart condition. It's hard to say exactly since they're not that specific, but like there's something physically wrong there. So yeah, so that's like part of it as well. And the other part is Edmund's absolute obliviousness to Mary Crawford's true feelings in life. He likes her so much that he thinks the best of her, but the version of her in his head is not reflection of reality. So, for example, he says things like, she does not think evil, but she speaks it. Okay, nobody says anything they weren't thinking beforehand, unless it is a literal slip of the tongue. But it wasn't. She said it over and over again. Like, obviously, that's how she feels. So it's one of those things, like, I find this book more frustrating than most of the other books by Jane Austen. And just because of so many people just not being sincere and not standing up for themselves. So I find this one very frustrating. I also think that it's less popular because the couple that you're rooting for, Fanny and Edmund, don't actually get together as a couple until like the last couple of paragraphs. It was literally like the last page. So the whole time they're not even together in a romantic way. And so you never see them together in a romantic way. And because of that, I think that nobody really likes, well, not nobody, like people don't like this one as much as other ones. So blatant classism, but that is true of all Jane Austen books. But I also find that there's a lot more like underlying sexual tension in this book than in other ones, where they're doing the play and they like there's a lot of physical touching. Like one of the things was that Maria and Henry Crawford were holding hands when Sir Thomas comes in, and the fact that Henry didn't let go of her hand was somehow significant to Maria, and how this physical touch was like important to her, where she says, "Oh, I think that he's going to propose to me. He must be very in love with me." Well, maybe, but probably not, because he's not acting like somebody in love. He's acting like somebody in lust. Yeah, he thought she was beautiful, and they did admit that she was a very, very beautiful girl. So that's why he was interested in her. It was purely physical. Yeah, it's one of those like really crazy. It's a really crazy story. It's a really crazy story. And it is very, very different from Jane Austen's usual, like other books that she's written. I was going to say usual. There's not that many to have a usual, but it's very unique in that sense. Anyway, but let me know what you think about the book, and happy reading.